Welcome to the 2-Month Review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which we take one giant book, break it down bit by bit, section by section, read it, discuss it, make dead baby jokes.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. No more. Are we cut off? Are we officially cut off? No more dead baby jokes. Okay. Well, we don't do that, but we are going to be talking about 2666 by Roberto Bolaño. We're going to be finishing the part about the crimes, which goes up to page, 633. I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox and featured contributor to local magazine Lilac.
Yes. Hi, Chad. Good to be here.
The $30 publication.
Holy cow. Yeah. What were they thinking? But
we have a sponsor, but we're going to save that for later.
A sponsor?
We have a sponsor.
Oh, that's good. This is a good week to stop dead baby jokes. Then.
I think that's probably true. So
we had a sponsor.
We were actually contacted by a sponsor, by someone who wants to sponsor us. And I'm going to do the bit here, and I'll read it one more time separately once I have this all set up. But basically, we were contacted by this app called Wisdom, in which I believe it's kind of like social media meets masterclass sort of thing, where people can go on and give a presentation. You can listen to them. You can interact with them. You can talk to them. You can do all that kind of stuff. So to do this, I have a username. I have an account and username named Chad W. Post. Like it is everywhere. You can always find every Chad W. Post is only me. And I am going to give a presentation on probably on breaking into the business of publishing and/or translation next Wednesday at 7 p.m. I will include the link on the show note. Wednesday, 7 p.m. on the Wisdom app, and you're supposed to all join Wisdom, follow me, make me a master class. I don't know. Give me Wisdom points.
So what are you talking on?
I think breaking into publishing or translation. What else do I know?
Why in the world would anybody want to do that? I know this is probably save it for the class, but why would you want to break?
Why is a good question. So please join the app, download, find me. I'll have it scheduled. I'll include a link here and on our social media.
Amazon, where I don't need you. I can just click a button and they'll do it for me. And I've seen some of the books that they're really good.
Yeah.
They look really good and they are really good. They're edited really well.
I've been reading everything and less about the impact of Amazon on novels and contemporary literature. So
oh boy,
it's kind of interesting. It actually might be interesting stuff for this later. There's one part that sort of bounced off 2666, but whatever. So anyways, that's our sponsor, Wisdom app. Download it.
What's the website?
Wisdom.app, I think.
Really,
I don't know.
Really shelled out for
I don't know. Am I supposed to know that part?
I think so. It seems like
someone's talking at me through it right now.
For conversations that matter.
Yeah, for conversations that matter. Join wisdomapp.com for conversations that matter. I want to become a top mentor. I will mentor. Come on, talk to me. That way that'll be fun. We'll have fun. So again, Wednesday, December 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'll include the link in the bio. So you didn't like this section.
Oh, I liked it okay. I'm just saying if I'm ordering, everything has to be in order in a list these days.
Rank.
I would probably put this a little bit lower on my of the sections we've read.
Interesting.
I found it to be a little bit less interesting than the other sections for me and for my reading tastes.
What did you find less interesting?
This part has the most forward thrust with plot to me, and it starts to feel formulaic, and it starts to feel like we talked about this being, for lack of a better term, a detective novel. This felt the most detective-y, and you start getting the repetitions, especially towards the end, and you start feeling things circling. You kind of start feeling those, and I just found that it becomes a little bit less poetic. As the rest of the book was a little more poetic and philosophical and internal, and this felt less like that to me. It was more about the chase and the people involved in it.
Interesting. I'm trying to think. I like the braiding.
It was still really good.
The braiding was great. The same way I did it in section 1.
I enjoyed all of that. I like the critics better. I like Fate better.
Okay, I have a question that I wanted to go back and look at. So I think that
there's nothing wrong with this. It's not that I disliked it. It's just didn't like it as much.
Yeah. And now I'm going to mad you. So you hate it. So it's the worst thing you've ever read. So, I mean, we might as well just fuck literature, man. Fuck it all.
Why are you racist against Spanish language literature?
Yeah, wait.
Okay.
I'm canceling you live on air. You've been canceled.
That sounds fair.
You hate Bolaño. You
Yes.
said Bolaño is the worst. So you
I
said
did.
James Patterson is better than Bolaño.
I
That's
did.
crazy talk.
Yes, I did. You're right.
That is absolutely exactly what you said.
I could not read this on a 2-hour flight, so I did not like it.
No, it's not good. It's not
So
good.
I would take it you would rank this, if we're ranking, you would rank this section higher up for you?
I don't know. It's higher. I didn't think of it in relative nature. I was looking for. I did do that talk yesterday on Lost, and so
It's all competition, Chad. This is America.
everything's about what's better than the other.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't do well in those. I don't do well when that's the situation. Competition means not good for me.
But I guess more importantly than if you liked it or not, like, what did this section do for you? Like,
That's what I'm gonna try and tease out, because I read it all in one full swoop yesterday, and it is a standalone. It's almost like, that's why, like, last week I was like, let's not talk about the last few pages, because the second that Kessler's introduced in the section that we went through last week, this section is almost can be bracketed off. It is its own little act of this play. If you use, I guess it'd be like the third act of this, but there's no resolution, which is what you kind of know is going to happen, and it's interesting. But there's really like there's three storylines. There's Haas in the prison telling about who he believes killed
the Euriste brother cousins.
Uribe.
Sorry.
I think it's Uribe.
Yeah, Uribe.
The Uribe.
I went to school with somebody named Daniel Euriste. That's why it was Daniel Uribe.
Well, don't slander Daniel Euriste and imply that he is a murderer of many women.
Not
That is
a
not
rapist
good.
and murderer, I
Not
promise.
good. But there's his line.
Yeah.
There's the Kessler line, which is interesting, and then there's the
Congresswoman.
Congresswoman's
And
line
Polly.
with Sergio that are together in a pair, and then the only other interspersed things are more of the deaths. I think that hers. So the thing that
and Lakuta kind of disappears, which is kind of weird because it starts having some thrust like he's going to be really important,
Yeah.
and he's starting to figure things out, and he's starting to make connections. It's just like, yeah, bye.
Yeah, he's like, well, his last Laluca's last appearance is where they go to the crime scene, and the guy's like, "What do you notice?" He's like, "Oh, it's been scrubbed deliberately," and he's like,
Clean.
He's like, "No, it's not deliberately clean. It's just stupidity. But yeah, it's clean. Like, there's nothing here anymore." And we start to get a lot of the erasures. So La Locura also has Locura, both as madness, but also as a almost lacuna sounding thing of like a gap. We get a lot of like those sort of the silences that almost get a little bit more. I don't know what I'm saying here, but those are the three. And I think that what's interesting about the Congresswoman is that hers is the only actual narrative. So she has a story that she's telling, that she has a goal for her life. So we talked about like the aimlessness of the characters on the Thanksgiving episode and how they drift. And that's one of the appealing things of the book, is that the character and of Bolaño's writings is that they're sort of drift. They're aimless in the sense that their purposes are never fulfilled. You never really get those conclusions. And she's like the one who's like, this is what I want. I want you to go. I want you to solve this. I'm an important woman. I need to find out what happened to my friend. Go fucking find out. So hers has like an interesting counterbalance, because Kessler is just like driving around essentially. And then Haas is just saying things that may or may not be true, or probably like partially true. I actually believe, like, I don't think that any serial killer was like responsible for all of the women, but I wouldn't be surprised that the people that he points to they're very similar to the section on Fate, where Fate goes in that the place that they describe where they're watching the porno.
Well, it's interesting because there's three different ways that these characters are approaching or talking about or involved with the deaths, right? With Kessler, it's almost celebrity, right? He's touring. I love how Bolaño on his tour, whenever he's in a country outside of America, he has to put the country in parentheses: Rome, Italy, London, England. But he also went to Miami, here, there, and there.
And he is like, he's funny because he is like the one of the things they keep referencing is that he helped people out on action movies and like senior movies.
Yeah, action movies, and like the names of the books are just so typically terrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Serial. So he has like this, like, I don't care celebrity. He's cashing in on this.
Yeah,
right?
a little bit. Yeah,
and he's the one that's probably taken the most serious out of anybody that he shows
He's the
up
one
and
who actually
everybody
knows
comes to
things.
his talk.
Yeah.
Like, he's right. So we have that one. And then with the Congresswoman, it's more about actually caring about the person that's lost.
And specifically one person. She gives her backstory and
Kelly,
her friend.
and it's a person. It's not, it's not just stats or details. It's like an actual, like, I love this person. I want to know what happened.
Yeah.
Like, so like Ernest, like, you're going to sit here, you're going to listen to me. I want this solved. And then with Haas, what is his though? I mean, it's kind of madness in a way.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm not quite sure what his
like goal or his narrative reaction to it. I think that he's like, at some point is trying to prove his innocence. Like, he's like, I didn't do this. He's just in jail.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's like, is he hearing the rumors? Is he actually hearing something that other people aren't, because the other people aren't paying attention?
Well, yeah, because it's almost like he's speaking and he has an audience, but the audience doesn't listen. Well, and they don't care.
Yeah, and they like sort of are like, yeah, you're full of shit. And he's like, yeah, they're like, how do you know this? Like, you hear everything in prison. They're like, that's some bullshit from some American movie. You don't know what you're talking about, Klaus. And then he's like, no, seriously, it's these people. And the one guy,
everybody talks. There's no secrets here.
And the one guy who writes the article without checking disappeared. Yeah. Disappeared.
So I thought that was a really smart technique that Bologna did with setting up braiding those three, all coming from three different angles. Mm-hmm. And that idea of like, they're all pushing towards, you can feel the resolution coming, and then it's just.
And well, I guess maybe Klaus's thing is to name our villain. He's to name the villain. Kessler is essentially just supposed to give them tools, mm-hmm. right? Like, he goes and looks around places, and then he gives speeches. Like, what he really does, he doesn't like do detective work. He like gives speeches at the university and to the people, and he's like,
it's currency for him.
And also like, he's like, well, there's all these neighborhoods that you don't go to where like it's literally like the riskiest behavior to go walking out at night as a female in these areas, and there's no cops and there's no lighting and nobody pays any attention. So like, yeah, that's kind of a problem. But they're like supposed to learn, I think, from him in a way. Like, he's not going to solve everything, but he's going to give them the tools. But they're also like disinterested most of the time. And like seems to be reflected when the Congresswoman, whose name I'm totally blanking on, goes to Santa Teresa and is like, well, I met with the mayor, I met with the person, I met with this police chief. Or does she not meet with the police chief? I forget. Like, he just doesn't show up to one of their things. He's just not around. And she's like, and they're all just like, oh yeah, I don't know, man, nothing to do. And it's just like constant bureaucracy and shit. And she sees that they're not going to try and solve anything, even for her. And that's a problem. I want to save her ending for like the last bit. There was a funny thing. I haven't finished this still, but in the critical book by Chris Andrews, talks about like the 4 types of villains in Bolaño's books. And one of them is the administrator. So I think we get a lot of it in this case. Is the other ones were like, let me see where it is. I'm losing my pages here. The accomplice, the dictator, the administrator, and the sociopath.
Okay. Well, yeah, you get a little bit of all of that.
Get a little bit of all of that.
I'm naive to.
I need to ask that question.
To his background, but was he? Was Bolaño constantly involved in academia, or was he able to steer clear of it?
No, he was clear
outside of having to give lectures.
I don't think he gave that many until he was popular at the end of his life.
Okay,
and that was more like festivals. I think
because I've seen a few of the interviews that he does with roundtables and stuff.
Yeah, I think there's like that public presentations less.
And I might be reading into it too much, but he always seemed a little uncomfortable in those settings. I don't know if that's true or not. But okay.
When does Kessler? Okay, in the section about Fate, it's in that section where Fate's driving out of Tucson or wherever, and is in the diner. It is that section. It is in Fate's section, right? He's in the diner and Kessler's there, and they say like, "What do you think's going on with the women?" And he says something. We've mentioned this, but I don't remember what it is. And I also, more curiously, don't know how these things lock together chronologically now. I thought I did, and then I got very confused in this section, thinking that, like, okay, if Kessler has been there and left, and then Fate saw him when he left, then when Fate gets to Santa Teresa, all this stuff that we're talking about has already happened,
Mm-hmm.
but yet it feels like in that section we're just discovering like Oscar or Amalfitano is like discovering the Amalfitano section separate. So maybe that's where it's like being discovered, but it feels more at the beginning of like the awareness of the femicide. And that seems to not, I don't know where and then the characters who are there, the critics who are there, they're there in relation to this as well. And they see the tall German, which would be presumably Klaus, before he's in jail. So like, do these all intersect? It's probably super obvious, and I could probably Google it, and somebody listening right now is probably like, you moron. But last night I had a moment where I was just like, wait, how does this segue?
That's what we're here for, to make people feel comfortable with hard books, because we're idiots.
Make people feel comfortable telling me that I'm a moron.
So page 267, the young man covered his face with his hands and said, "Professor Kessler, my lips are sealed." "All right, then," said the white-haired man. "I'll tell you 3 things I'm sure of. A, everyone living in that city is outside of society. And everyone is like the ancient Christians in the Roman circus. B, the crimes have different signatures. C, the city seems to be booming. It seems to be moving ahead in some ineffable way. But the best thing would be for every last one of the people there to head out into the desert some night and cross the border."
So he has been there.
So this must be coming back
after the section. Although I always see these as contemporary, and I assume that they are, but like, there's no reason that it has to be. But so we could take them.
So they're intersecting where he's going into the city and Kessler's coming out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He's on his way back to Tucson area. Okay.
Tucson's a place, man.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent to the style of like Pulp Fiction, for instance, where these lives intersect in strange ways.
Yeah.
That we can make the connections to, but there may not necessarily be a connection to be made other than just happen, like Fate, for instance. They just happen to be. Because I noticed that too with a lot of the detective work, with each character, Fate is what got them there. It's not by their intelligence. It's not by them doing something. Like in a detective novel, you want some cleverness that uncovers or you discover or something. And in this, it's just, some guy was talking about they know who this person is. He's in Mexico. We should go over there.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, just happen to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Or like, his wife murdered him, so you're gonna go down there now. Oh, okay.
And like 90% of in this section, there was a lot. I didn't count it up, but it felt like it was a lot of like the crimes and like, oh, we need to find this guy, and they're like, I couldn't find him, so just like,
why is the professor up there? He just had a job, like, like there's nothing that takes them to this place outside of like
the agency.
External forces are just kind of somehow pushing them into this black hole.
That's the thing that we talked about. I think it was on the Thanksgiving here that in the book it talks about that kind of aimlessness, or they don't have like, and it goes back to even Liz Norton's bit of like, if you asked her what she was thinking about doing in the short term, long term, medium term, she had no answer because she isn't planning. They don't plan.
Yeah.
The only person who seems to so far, I might be misremembering, but is the Congresswoman, where she has now a motive. She kind of like has a motive her whole life. She's like, I'm gonna, remain wealthy and in power one way or another. But now, like, she has a specific story. My friend was disappeared, likely murdered, was running like some sort of like Jeffrey Epstein level sex parties out in various parts of the desert. And I want someone to fucking find her or find out what happened. And then her ending, so we can jump to her ending because I think it's the part that is like the whole thing for the book. And this is the one that's like powerful, but also maybe a little too on the nose. In terms of the section is her last thing where on 631, what is it I want you to do? Asked the Congresswoman. I want you to write about this. Keep writing about this. I've read your articles. They're good, but too often you pull your punches. I want you to strike hard, strike human flesh, unassailable flesh, not shadows. I want you to go to Santa Teresa and sniff around. I want you to sink in your teeth. And so that sort of like, I want you to write it and to make it, which he does write the book, The Bones of the Desert, which all the crimes are based on. It's kind of weird, like meta simulacrum to reality issue, but is what this book is doing too. It's writing all those things, although it's not the one thing it is not doing in a sense. It's naming the victims, but and you're not going to name like a killer, but like the people in charge, like the police officer and all that, they're obviously probably they're fictional in here, but it is like that level, that corruption could be even further explored or further documented as to why this continues to happen. But it is kind of like this statement ends up being this part of the book, and in some parts, some ways.
Yeah, I dog-eared that section as well, because I thought I didn't like the way it was delivered. Like you said, a little on the nose for me, but I do like the idea of, and this question has been brought up a few times in this book, and like, what do you do with this madness? What do you do with this pain? What do you do with this terrible, like, human activity? And what place does literature have in it? Does writing make a difference? Like that idea of art and this awful apocalyptic landscape, and this I thought was really like, yes, it does matter. You need to write. You need to keep writing. There needs to be record.
Needs to be.
Yeah.
Right.
So I thought that's kind of what I took from that.
One thing before I forget, one of the crazy echoes is, remember when we had the guy that meets Archamboldi in the critics part, and he says that he organizes the cultural events out in like the provincial and that's essentially what her friend is doing. She's organizing these parties for famous rich people out in these little provincial capitals, and paying to get famous people to come with her. And then it goes into the Epstein's situation, which what a fucking time to be reading this book. We've got Amy Coney Barrett, and we've got that whatever her name is on trial for Epstein stuff, and like, it feels really prescient right now. You have your book of detective story stuff there. And I found the quote that I wanted to tell you guys.
Yeah, yours is better. I think we should definitely. Mine is from yours is like a real book. This I'll throw. These are some of the greatest things ever. They're the Writer's Digest series. 20 master plots (parentheses) and how to build them.
We've got to find that.
These books are fantastic because it takes literature and just turns it into like a stupid flow chart, basically.
Yes, exactly.
I like them though, because whenever you're teaching, it's fantastic to show these, because it is like a thick, like IKEA frame for a poster to go into, right?
Yeah.
So let's take Ulysses and put it in this nice.
This is how you put this there. That goes there.
Yeah, but more importantly, I think it's great to pick it apart at how ridiculous it is at the same time. But it's a great starter. It's a great starting point.
Yeah.
It's like a brownie mix to make a brown, and like we'll make a cake from scratch later. But
part of this book's argument is that Amazon allows for essentially for those things to flourish. Yeah. Because it's just variation and that the idea of a book and the idea of Amazon is to be more. Yeah. Everything there should be more. There should be more options, more voices, more variety, more things that are the same that you can just keep kind of reading and going through, but like there's more of them there. One of the things is, I have not read much of this, Everything and Less by Mark McGurl, just in the introduction, but in the introduction he says, I think the contemporary form of the novel is the trilogy. I was like, yeah, it fucking is. You're right.
We can get into this a little later maybe, but it reminds me of the same way that the film industry has gone as well.
Yeah, as a film industry too, it feels like it's either remakes or like psychological horror.
It's just products. It's not products. It's no longer an art form. It's just a product.
It's a product. It's a commodity. The commodification. Although he says like it's not all commodified. There is like the interesting statement that I've always used before too, is that one of the weird things about commodifying books is that you're selling something that it will take someone an inordinately long period of time to know if they like. Like you don't get that immediate, like we stream things, you turn off Netflix, doesn't make a difference, but you pay $20 for a book and you have to spend 12-14 hours like reading it and being like, oh yeah, I guess it's pretty good.
Well, I run that with my wife too, where I'll recommend a book for her. She's like, well, is it good? I'm like, yeah, it gets really good like around page 100. Like you can't put it. It's like, I'm not going to read 100 pages to like something. Like I don't have time for this.
That's like I remember people saying that about Infinite Jest. You have to go through page 150 before you really start to get it. Very true. So this book, though, the Butor book, is Passing Time, and this is from a blog post that I wrote that I can link to. That's called "Nothing Adds Up Until You Overthrow the System." No idea.
Oh, you just watched The Matrix, Chad?
Oh my God. It was during the protests, during the Black Lives Matter protests.
I was in my Rage Against the Machine phase.
I was raging against the machine. I don't know. It must be a line from somewhere. Because it doesn't sound. Although the other day I was a little bit off, and just I know a little bit off, a little bit altered, and I know where I was just like, the darkness of winter is coming. We have to take care of ourselves. That was like my statement out of nowhere late at night, and I feel like every once in a while something's tapping in here.
You're plagiarizing House Stark.
I'm playing Game of Thrones. So this is from a post written some time ago. Okay, and it says that about passing time by Michel Butor. The novel is written as a journal, starting in May, but recounting the events from the past October by Jacques Raval about the year he spends in Bleston, a sort of stand-in for Manchester, England. While he's in the dark, wet, cold, bleak industrial town, he meets a couple of sisters, a potential arsonist, and the author behind the pseudonymously written The Bleston Murder, who survives an attempt on his life. What makes this book really work is that as Ravel rereads his own diary, he sees inaccuracies in his account of events and essentially becomes a detective in which he discovers that he himself was the criminal and kind of the victim. It's a fascinating book that melds together form and content, essentially a meditation on the relationship between the writer and reader, or the criminal and detective. Now, I had read this years ago when we reprinted a bunch of Butor books, like Degrees, which is spectacular, and Mobile, which is crazy. And I don't know why we didn't do this one, because I think this one was always my favorite. Maybe it was just like the rights, we couldn't find the rights or something. But anyways, my memory of what this detective section was much different than what it actually is, but it relates. So there's a part in the middle of the book in which our journalist or like diary keeper is talking to someone, and this person explains, and this is out of context, but it really doesn't make any difference. Any detective story is constructed on two murders. Any detective story is constructed on two murders, of which the first, committed by the criminal, is only the occasion of the second, in which he is the victim of the pure, unpunishable murderer, the detective, who kills him not by one of those despicable means he has himself reduced to using, poison, the knife, a silent shot, or the twist of a silk stocking, but by the explosion of truth. He is the true executioner, and the hangman, the public prosecutor, the whole legal apparatus, and all the inspectors of Scotland Yard, the Quai des Orfèvres, are merely his instruments, and moreover, as you'll have noticed, always to some extent bear him a grudge because he meddles in their business and makes use of them for an end so different from theirs, for they are guardians of the old order, jeopardized, whereas his purpose is to disturb and probe, to expose and alter things, and eventually sometimes double crosses them, sets himself up as a sole judge, and robs them of their prey. Let me go one more here. The aim,
so like pretending I'm a golden retriever. So basically, you have darkness, and the detective's job is to shine light on it, to
disrupt
the first murder.
So there's the murder, and then the murderer is being caught by truth and shining the light,
and the illumination of that light, and that's the justice that nothing changes other than the bad guy is gone, the good guy figured it out, and on to the next one.
Right.
And we like that.
So here is there's these other, this is not super long, but this does help or make sense related to some of the things we've talked about in this book. The aim of his whole existence is that tremendous moment in which the power of his explanations, of his disclosure, of the words by which he tears off veils and masks, uttered generally in a tone of grave melancholy, as if to soften the terrible dazzling light they shed, so welcome to those whom it sets free, but so cruel, so appalling, so blinding too. The power of his speech actually destroys the criminal, achieves that death that confirms and crowns his work, that moment when reality is transformed and purified by the sole power of his keen and accurate vision. The major part of the relations existing between the participants in the drama were maintained only through the errors, ignorance, and lies which he abolishes. The actors group themselves in a new pattern from which one member of the former grouping is automatically excluded. He cleanses a small fraction of the world from its offense, which was not so much the mere fact that one man has killed another, for there may be such a thing as pure murder, kind of rejuvenation sacrifice, but rather the defilement that murder brings with it, the bloodstained shadows that it casts about it, and at the same time that deep-seated, age-old discord, which becomes incarnate in the criminal from the moment when, by his act, he revealed its presence and aroused those vast buried forces which now disturb the hitherto accepted order of things and betray its fragility. Last one. The detective is a true son of the murderer Oedipus, not only because he solves a riddle, but also because he kills the man to whom he owes his title. without whom he would not exist in that capacity. Without crimes, without mysterious crimes, what would he be? Because this murder was foretold for him from the day of his birth, or if you prefer, because it is inherent in his nature, although it alone he fulfills himself and attains the highest power.
Okay.
So there's a lot of like words there.
Yeah. Can you unpack the second one? Because I checked out about.
Yeah, I was trying to check out as I was reading it. So all doing good here. I like the idea that like the thing that about the detective unveiling, like the truth goes back to like when we were talking about the critics and the revelation of like, and that unveiling regroups society by taking one specific instance, and the person who is group of this, there's 10 people, one of them's a murderer, has committed that murder, then excludes them, destroys them. They are no longer, the order cannot include them anymore. And because the truth has been shed.
The Oedipal aspect of it's pretty wild. I never considered that, but that does make sense.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's like Batman and Joker.
Yeah,
right. The killing joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you are nothing without me, and I am nothing without you.
I need a murderer to be a detective.
Yeah,
somebody needs to get out there and go murder. So
we are the same, and we need each other.
We need each other, which is crazy. But like some of this seems to bounce off of a little bit what we were talking about in here. Ironically, the one part that this connection is more for the joke than for a reality. So the bit where it's like that the detective, Scotland Yard and various other people aren't down with the detective because he's like fucking their shit up. They just want to like look for the crimes, do their little bit, and he's actually like digging, probing, sometimes gets the criminal or kills the murderer before they can go to jail, so on and so forth. But there's a section in here where Kessler goes to lunch with the police officers, and the police officers are like, he orders a cheese sandwich. And it's clear that the police officers are sort of like not, there's always been questions about like, do they respect this guy? Or they're like, why is he coming down? We have a criminologist, like, why this, why that? And it reminded me immediately, because the cheese sandwich is so weird, of the Cyclops episode in Ulysses, where that's when Bloom goes in and orders a cheese sandwich, gorgonzola cheese sandwich, but cheese sandwich nonetheless. And there's a group of people who are like the locals, the good Irish, the big Irish, and they say a bunch of anti-Semitic things to him and sort of chase him out. But there is like that divide between Bloom and the rest of the society. And this felt a little bit like maybe a weird hint of that. But if you type in, if you're Chad Post anyways, and you Google Ulysses Bloom cheese sandwich Cyclops, what you're led to is actually a thing about My Little Pony.
Is it Rule 34?
I think so. Well, what it's called is just, all I know is I didn't click on it because I was afraid. But the two things that came up when I was trying to find this to make sure that I had the memory right were Cheese confesses, My Little Pony friendship is magic, Wikipedia. And why did Leopold Bloom eat a gorgonzola sandwich?
Is Gorgonzola the name of one of the ponies?
I have no idea, man.
She's the stanky.
It says Cheese confesses is the 10th song featured in the 4th season. My Little Pony friendship is magic.
She's the stanky pony. Oh man. Okay, so then on this master plot, let's talk about this in a dumb way now.
Yeah, let's do it.
20 master plots and how to build them. So
one of them is, this is how you create Ulysses.
Yeah, Ulysses. The master plot number 7 is the riddle, and it starts with the epigraph. The mystery story is really 2 stories in one: the story of what happened and the story of what appeared to happen. But I think in this book, the riddle isn't the murders. It's more about Archambaldi, right? That's the actual center riddle.
Right.
And like it led them to the murders, but that's the initial, that's that first riddle that we get. So checklist. As you write, keep the following points in mind. So there are 9 things you need to do in order to write a riddle book or a mystery. Number 1, the core of your riddle should be cleverness, hiding that which is in plain sight. So at the end of this, are we going to know plainly and clearly who Archambaldi is and who his lineage, who his son is, who his...
Well, yes.
I think we already met the mistress. It was that when they went to go visit the lady of the publisher, the widow of the publisher.
Right.
Maybe, but whatever. 2, the tension of your riddle should come from the conflict between what happens as opposed to what seems to have happened. I don't know if that works so much.
I don't know either.
3, the riddle challenges the reader to solve it before the protagonist does. Certainly have that.
Yeah, although there's the other, like, you can split there. Oh, we can read the Diego Moroni bit in a bit too, but there's the split there of like, do you have enough clues or do you not?
Yeah.
Are the clues available or not is a different subcategory of these.
4, the answer to your riddle should always be in plain view without being obvious.
Sort of like,
so we keep getting giant Germans throughout, and it talks of giants, right?
Yeah.
So I think
The
that's
giant is coming.
That's part. Well, but again, there is no answer to who are the murderers, because there's murderers.
Yeah.
There's several. Yeah.
It's just a situation in which these people can do.
That's not really the riddle. I think the riddle is like the German. It's the author, and then the people that are over here. That, like, what are giant white people doing in Santa Teresa and all the murder? Like,
yeah.
Okay. All right. 5. The first dramatic phase should consist of the generalities of the riddle: person, places, events.
Yeah.
We kind of get that.
Yeah, we do kind of get that. Yeah.
We get that with book 1 for sure. All right. Good job, Bolaño.
you're gonna get an A- on this 20 master plots.
We'll give you an A- in our riddles 101. 6. The second dramatic phase should consist of the specifics of the riddle: how persons, places, and events relate to each other in detail. We get that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
I'd say. All right, we're working. All right. 7. The third dramatic phase should consist of the riddle's solution, explaining the motives of the antagonist and the real sequence of events, as opposed to what seemed to have happened. We definitely don't get that.
Yeah.
Why does people, like, there's no motive. There's no.
No, but there is. Actually, that's one of the ones I just thought of.
You think there's motive in this?
Well, what I think is, yeah, okay, so
for the killings?
Bear with me here.
Well, not the killings, but I guess the motive
of the
Arcambaldi's disappearance and finding him.
Yeah, maybe not for that, but the motive thing. There's one disturbing section here where.
Let me skip to number 8 while you're looking it up. 8. Decide on your audience. Shouldn't you do that earlier?
Oh my God.
You're writing about snuff films and just hardcore. I think this is for kids.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Sub 8. Oh crap! All right, better do Gorgonzola Pony instead here. This is not gonna work.
Cheese confesses.
Number 8. Decide your audience. We can get to that. Who do you think the audience? Who's Bolaño's audience for this book? I wonder.
I don't know. I mean, it has that universal feel of like making people aware of this. But yeah, one could argue about the audience thing for a while. That's interesting. I'm not finding it. Where is it?
I don't know what a Western audience is, but it definitely feels like he has North America in mind.
Yeah,
especially with the border, the space, and the critics, their interest in the author. 9. Choose between an open-ended and close-ended structure. Open-ended riddles have no clear answer. Close-ended ones do.
Wow. Oh my God.
So I definitely, he has chosen open-ended for sure. But that's what you have to keep in mind when you're writing your riddle book, your mystery.
That's a good list of things. I was looking for the what they point to as the motive for the murderers, or for the people he accuses, the Uribes, because it's a really unnerving and important line, and it's somewhere in here. It exists, I'm sure, but I'm sure I'm not making this up. Somewhere, he says something like,
the one part I remember is one of the cousins was aroused.
That's the line.
That's the
I'm looking for. Okay. Yeah, as he says, like, well, first, he was whatever the one Uribe brother was doing it. Here we go. So someone asked, like, why. What did they actually ask? It was Antonio Uribe who started the killings at Haas. Daniel went along with him and helped to dispose of the bodies afterwards. But little by little, Daniel got interested. Though interested isn't the right word, said Haas. What's the right word, said the reporters. And then say it, Klaus, said the lawyer. Haas looks at the ceiling. The right word, he said, is aroused. Aroused, asked the reporters. Watching what his cousin did. Daniel Uribe got aroused, said Haas. And it wasn't long before he started to rape and kill too. Damn, exclaimed the reporter from El Independiente Phoenix. But like, that's super disturbing, but also is kind of like a fundamental point of like that at its core of these, once you scrape things away, these people are barbarians. It's barbaric. And if that's supposed to be a statement for all of humanity, that underneath everything there's an opportunity for barbarism, like when they beat the shit out of the cab driver.
Well, I don't know if he's
like eruptions.
making a comment on it or not, but I think it is important to point out that they're both involved in it. At first it was watching, and then now they're both involved. And I think when you can spread the blame amongst, you can do more horrible crimes if more people are doing it. It takes the
set every Nazi.
Yeah, it takes the guilt out of it. It takes the in the same way the critics as a group beat the shit out of the person. It wasn't one person that did it. The blame is spread amongst. So it makes you able to do terrible things.
Absolutely.
Because it also, so it could be the brothers, and then they're also talking about organized crime, and so there's groups.
It all feels super connected.
Yeah.
And that they were connected to the bad narco, the fact that their father owns all of like the trucking to be able to move things, the going back and forth. Like, it feels like with that David Peace quartet, or like the first season of True Detective, where like there's even if these people murdered a number of women, not everyone that's referenced in this book, not every woman who's died in Santa Teresa, but we're in some way involved. They're aided and abetted by like the cops who clean the scenes, by like the mayor who doesn't pay that much attention, by all these people that are like turning a blind eye or allowing it, like the real estate owners, people, they all own those areas.
They're all complicit.
And they're all complicit.
Yeah.
They're all complicit. It's like whatchamacallit, it's the Agatha Christie Orient Express. Is that right?
Sure.
The Orient Express.
The other thing that it makes me think of too is in the context of like imperialism, which we talked about as well. This idea of like, if it's a group that's doing it, it can feel okay. You can you can sleep at night with the horrors that you're doing to people.
Yeah.
And the more people you do it to, the more abstract it becomes, and you can do terrible things to abstractions. Whereas if it's single and it's concrete, it's horrific.
It's kind of like when I play Grand Theft Auto and I murder the one whore. I'm like, well, I feel bad about that. Really, but then I kill like 7 cops and like 10 more whores. I'm like, I don't know, man. It's just like it was a good day in Vegas, I suppose. Yeah. I've never played Grand Theft Auto. I don't know if any of that is possible. I just read a essay about it though, so I feel like I have some general understanding of the game.
So, and I do think there's that could be its own thesis statement for the whole book if you want to.
Yeah,
but that's definitely there as well.
There was too, one of the things that we talked about in relation to the detective stuff the other week was the Borges sort of like hypothesis, or I don't know, he wrote it in an essay and then wrote a story about it, where he said like the detective story that he wants to write is a detective story where you're given them the mystery, the detectives solve it, but they solve it incorrectly. And so the reader is able to understand what the real solution is at the end of the book, but you have like a false ending in the middle that distracts from like what the real ending is. And in a way, if you're talking about this as a mystery as a whole of the 5 volumes, and the mystery involves Archibaldi and who he is and what his relationship is, this is in the middle is like sort of a weird fake ending. Klaus, or a conclusion. Klaus Haas was involved in murdering things. He's connected, blah blah. But it's not really. It doesn't resolve anything. There is no resolution there.
The other creepy nugget, and I don't think it was a red herring, was when if I recall, last week or 2 weeks ago, they're trying to have one of the girls. What the cars look like, and they take it to the police station and say the cars look like this. Right.
Yeah.
That was like creeped me out, because it's like, oh no, they're all like, this is so terrible and deep, and it's all involved. It's crime, it's the police, it's the reporters, it's the, oh god.
There was
it's the depths of this horror. It's that abyss. It's that bad. And that one was just so creepy for me. That one line that just kind of, you get it, one little line, we just move right on, never talked about again.
the one that stood out to me that was the creepiest in terms of like reading it and having like a visceral reaction was an echo of when the first reporter describes the Santa Teresa prison as like a woman's body that's cut up, that's sort of alive. Kessler looked out again at the landscape, fragmented or in the constant process of fragmentation, like a puzzle repeatedly assembled and disassembled until the driver to take him to the illegal dump El Chile. But there's something about that, the landscape of like fragmenting and reforming that creeps me out. And it also reminds me of the David Lynch movie. There you go. We got it in there. I got it in there.
Dune? Was it
Dune? It's like the David. It's like
that's like that's in a desert.
It is. It is in a desert. Lost Highway is the one that keeps coming to mind. I haven't seen that in a million years. I don't know. What else do we want to go through here? I'm looking through. I wrote down a thing about celebrity too.
We're at 45. You want to do favorite lines?
Yeah. What am I? I've got a bunch though. This one I marked as my favorite line.
Cheese cheese sandwich.
It's cheese sandwich. Just Ulysses.
Great.
Question mark.
Great. You're a nerd.
And then but then the other thing in that section where like cheese sandwich is this Ulysses reference, and then the rest of it is about mapping. It describes all the places, which is also like kind of Ulyssian thing. No, my line of the week is, isn't reality an insatiable AIDS-riddled whore?
That's interesting because there's that one, and then they talk about a strung out pimp.
Yeah.
To describe things as well, like these damaged bodies.
Yeah.
I thought that was that's another interesting through line. I have two. One we already talked about as a writer, and when you're sitting alone by yourself and writing, wondering, does any of this really matter? I want you to write about this. Keep writing about this. I like that. Like,
yeah, I've one other one that was like that is amazing. Being a criminologist in this country is like being a cryptographer at the North Pole. It's like being a child in a cell block of pedophiles. It's like being a beggar in the country of the deaf. It's like being a condom in the realm of the Amazon, said Professor Garcia Correa. That one has a bit of a Stanley Elkin riff vibe to it. Like we're just like this list of like, it's like this, it's like that. It's the repetition though again. Back to like, that's a joke structure, man.
And then 633, the way he ends this section, I just thought was, I don't know. It reminds, like his writing sometimes he does this like cool thing that you get from like Fitzgerald when he's, especially like with Gatsby or Tender as the Night, where you can just shift gears into he can like give you prose, and it's really good prose. It's nice and clean and lean. And then he'll shift gears into like a poetic image. And it's like, wow.
Oh yeah.
Like on 633, even on the poorest streets, people could be heard laughing. Some of these streets were completely dark, like black holes, and the laughter that came from them, who knows where, was the only sign, the only beacon that kept residents and strangers from getting lost.
Just like, boom.
Bang.
Also nice line on exactly.
And that's this is taking place at Christmas. So that's our Christmas line.
Christmas.
This is our holiday.
Christmas holidays are celebrated.
Holiday murder episode.
Yeah. What timing? What perfect timing.
Yeah.
I do like too. It's very bad when Sergio's talking about his novel. It's very bad. Then he said, books aren't censored or read here, but the press is another story. Newspapers are read, at least the headlines, which is true. Like you can write a book and I don't know, man,
I saw a headline yesterday that I didn't read the article yet. I'm going to, but it just looks, it's one of those like, you can't do like comedy anymore because just life is you can't do a parody of it. Like life is parody right now.
Yeah.
And it was about some guy in Great Britain, I think, who, the key to his Bitcoin servers, or I forget what it is, but there's like $500 million in Bitcoin that's in a dump. And he's trying to get it out of the landfill because he lost his Bitcoin in the trash.
His key or whatever the fuck is blockchain.
I don't know how that works.
I don't either.
It is the funniest. Well, yeah, it's funny. It's really funny that you've got $500 million that's in the trash. And it's Bitcoin.
It's $500 million.
It is trying to shut down the landfill so he can go rummage through all this detritus to find your Bitcoin. It's like, yes, this is perfect. You can't, if you wrote that, like
that's a Beckett play.
Yeah. You can't.
It's like Krebs' last Bitcoin.
It's so good. It's so good.
It's just a guy's head telling the story of his the rise and fall of his Bitcoin experience.
Oh, I just brought like in a dark time,
Someone
brought
will
so
bring it
much,
to me.
brought so much light to my life. That
Oh
headline.
my
What a great headline.
I click on the weirdest headlines to try and make my algorithm think that I'm like a schizophrenic who loves this kind of shit.
That's why you're getting the My Little Pony.
It's like My Little Pony.
Yeah.
Cheese confesses, guys. Cheese confesses.
Sure.
Okay. So
Chad's a Bologna brony. Who knew?
so next week on Wednesday at 7 p.m. come to Wisdom app and I'll be there talking. And you can talk with me, and that would be great. And they'll check it out. It seems like a fun
Wisdom app,
possibility.
Wednesday, 7 Eastern.
7 Eastern.
Okay. About publishing and translating.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Tell your friends if they're interested in breaking into translation or publishing. It'd be a good talk. You might have a couple gems, or get them off of the path.
Yeah. Get them.
More
Do it. I can't find what I'm looking for. So next week we are starting the last section. 16 season. I don't know how far we go because I'm typing like my thumbs are.
So it starts on 637.
Yeah.
The part about Archambaldi. This is where we're going to get our riddle figured out, I'm sure.
Yes. And so we're going up to page 721.
721. All right.
There we go. 721. I get a new volume to like bend and crease up and screw with. You've got the last section of your giant ass fat book. So thanks. I'm off to watch Friendship is Magic.